Today, Pakistan's story is about creating a regime of fear to sustain an unpopular regime. This is the story of midnight raids by security officials, climbing the walls in uniform, breaking the doors, and arresting ordinary Pakistanis ahead of opposition's march to Islamabad on May 25th. This is the story of censorship to silence critical journalists and political opponents. This is the story of persecution of journalists to make them dance to the tunes of the Pied Piper. This is the story of gross human rights violations, including torture for extracting evidence to implicate a political opponent. This is the story of torture, story of giving electric shocks to private parts and sexual abuse of a political opponent. The objective was and is to create a regime of fear to break the will of anyone willing to challenge a hybrid regime in Pakistan. A hybrid regime desperate to cling on to power, supported by crutches of the establishment apparatus. The apparatus runs the regime by hiding behind the smokescreen of plausible deniability, despite large footprints all over the place. The story started in April 2022, when the then Prime Minister, Imran Khan, was ousted through a vote of no confidence. Since then, Pakistan has changed. Pakistan has changed for the worse over the last few months since the government of Prime Minister Shabaz Sharif assumed office on April the 12th. Human rights organizations are crying out loud that fundamental human rights are being wantonly trampled. Economy is in a tailspin. Official figures of inflation released by Pakistan Bureau of Statistics measured inflation to be 42% for the month of August, highest ever during the last couple of decades. Security challenges in formal tribal areas are mounting with re-emergence of militants. Re-emergence of militant outfit Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan after a tacit agreement with Pakistani authorities is a cause of concern for ordinary Pakistanis. Balochistan, a province sharing borders with Iran and Afghanistan, is suffering an insurgency-like situation. Censorship is norm of the day. Journalists are being hounded and persecuted. More than 50 cases involving charges of sedition were registered against various journalists, including Imran Khan, Sami Ibrahim, Sabir Shakir, Arshad Sharif, Ahmad Yusuf, Adil Raja, Jamil Farooqi, Khavar Ghumman, and Salman Iqbal, Chief Executive Officer of popular television channel ARY News. Journalists, including News Director of ARY News, Ahmad Yusuf, Imran Khan, and Jamil Farooqi were arrested and humiliated during custody.
टॉर्चर किया, मुझे नंगा किया गया है, मेरे कपड़े उतारे, मेरे चपेटें मारी गई हैं.
ARY News, Pakistan's most popular TV channel with highest TRPs, was shut down arbitrarily during the second week of August after former Prime Minister Imran Khan's close confidant and Chief of Staff, Dr. Shabaz Gil, called upon government officials to only follow lawful commands. This was portrayed as inciting mutiny within ranks of the armed forces, and cases were registered immediately with multiple sections of law introduced in the subcontinent by the British during the pre-independence colonial era. Former Prime Minister Imran Khan, former Human Rights Minister Dr. Shiri Mazari, former Information and Law Minister Fawad Chaudhry claimed that Dr. Shabaz Gil was tortured during custody, including being subjected to sexual abuse. Professor Jeffrey Brown, Dean, Guy's College of Business at University of Illinois, The university, where Dr. Shabaz Gil taught as a member of the faculty, expressed concern about reports that Professor Gil may have been subjected to abuse while in police custody. As he is our colleague, we care deeply about his health and well-being, and we abhor violence and abuse of any kind. We call on the government of Pakistan and the international community to ensure that Dr. Gil be treated in accordance with international human rights law, said Dr. Jeffrey Brown, the University of Illinois professor, in a statement released on Twitter. On August 20th, Pakistan's Electronic Media Regulatory Authority imposed ban on TV channels to broadcast live speech of former Prime Minister Imran Khan. International human rights bodies like Amnesty International have voiced concern over human rights situation in Pakistan. Committee to Protect Journalists and Reporters Without Borders have expressed concern about harassment of journalists and deteriorating press freedoms in Pakistan. The coalition government of Pakistan Democratic Movement, led by Prime Minister Shabaz Sharif and supported by Pakistan People's Party, agitated for a better economy, media freedoms and good governance while being in opposition. However, developments since mid-April led to a volte-face in their action as the government in power. Behind the political facade of the government is an iron curtain through which the government is run. On 21st August, the government registered a case under anti-terrorism laws against Pakistan's most popular politician, Imran Khan. When the warrants for his arrest were issued, people with families came out on streets throughout Pakistan in large numbers to voice their concern. Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf leaders declared Imran Khan as their red line.
इमरान खान रेड लाइन है और ये रेड लाइन क्रॉस करने की कोई भी कोशिश करेगा, हमने जवाब देना है.
Thousands of supporters reached outside his residence in Banigala, a scenic place on the outskirts of capital Islamabad, and surrounded it as human shields to thwart any attempt by the authorities to arrest Imran Khan. Many Pakistanis wonder if things are ever going to get better. Political pundits believe the worst is yet to come over the next few months. Pakistan has changed for the worse, and it is not likely to be over soon.